You already know that social media is designed to be addictive. That's not a secret anymore. The endless scroll, the variable reward of notifications, the dopamine loop, that conversation has been had 1,000 times. But here is what almost nobody is talking about. The addiction isn't just costing you time. It's costing you money, quietly, systematically, and with a level of psychological precision that would genuinely disturb you if you understood the full architecture behind it. Because the apps you open 20, 30, 50 times a day aren't just engineered to steal your attention. They are engineered, deliberately, expensively, with the involvement of behavioral scientists and data teams and billions of dollars in research to make you spend money you didn't plan to spend on things you didn't know you wanted until the algorithm decided you should want them. And the most unsettling part? You almost never feel manipulated. You feel inspired. You feel like you discovered something. You feel like the decision was entirely yours. My name is Mike, and I have spent a long time thinking about the intersection of money, psychology, and the invisible systems that shape our financial behavior without our awareness or consent. And this topic, the financial manipulation embedded inside the apps we use every single day, is one I keep coming back to because it's so pervasive and so underexposed. Most personal finance content talks about budgets and savings rates and investment strategies. Almost none of it talks about the fact that there is an entire industry worth trillions of dollars whose business model depends on eroding your financial self-control before you even open your wallet. Today, I want to pull the curtain back on exactly how that works. Not to scare you, to arm you. Because once you see the specific mechanisms, the actual techniques being used on you right now, your relationship with these platforms changes permanently. And that change, I genuinely believe, is worth more than any budget spreadsheet you'll ever build. Let's start with something called the aspiration economy, because I think it's the foundation that everything else gets built on. Social media, almost by design, shows you the best version of other people's lives, not their Tuesday afternoons, not their moments of boredom or financial stress or quiet mediocrity. Their highlight reels, the vacation, the outfit, the apartment with the perfect light, the car that showed up casually in the background of a video that was technically about something else. And human beings, wired by evolution to benchmark themselves against their social group, absorb all of this comparison data constantly and involuntarily. You cannot turn off the comparison instinct. It is ancient and automatic. What you can do is understand that it's being deliberately activated and exploited. The platforms know that aspiration drives engagement. Aspirational content makes people spend more time scrolling, and more time scrolling means more data, more ad impressions, more revenue. The business model runs on your desire to have what the person on your screen has. And every minute you spend immersed in carefully curated images of a lifestyle slightly better than yours is a minute your brain is being conditioned to feel subtly dissatisfied with your current reality. That dissatisfaction is not an accident. It is the product. Now here is where it gets really specific and really uncomfortable. Social media platforms don't just show you aspirational content and hope you eventually buy something. They have built entire commercial ecosystems designed to collapse the distance between the moment of desire and the moment of purchase to as close to zero as possible. Instagram has an app shopping. TikTok has TikTok Shop embedded directly into the feed, so you can go from watching a video to completing a purchase without ever leaving the app. Pinterest is essentially a visual catalog that routes directly to retailers. YouTube has shoppable ads that let you click and buy mid-video. Every one of these features was built with one explicit goal: eliminate friction. Because friction, the pause, the extra step, the moment of having to open a different app or type in a website, is where your rational brain gets a chance to ask whether you actually need this thing. Remove the friction, and you remove the pause. Remove the pause, and you remove the decision. What's left is pure impulse, dressed up as discovery. And the influencer economy sits right on top of all of this in a way that deserves its own honest examination. We have arrived at a moment in media history where the most trusted voices in many people's lives are not journalists or experts or institutions. They are individuals on screens who have built parasocial relationships with their audiences over months and years. You feel like you know them. You feel like they're your friend. And when a friend tells you about a product they love, even when that friend is a content creator with an affiliate code and a brand deal, your brain processes it very differently than it processes a traditional advertisement. Traditional ads trigger your sales resistance automatically. You see a TV commercial, and some part of your brain goes, "This is someone trying to sell me something." Proceed with appropriate skepticism. But when someone you've been following for 2 years, whose life you've watched in intimate detail, whose opinions you've come to trust, when that person says, "I genuinely love this, it changed my morning routine. Use my code for 10% off," your sales resistance is almost entirely offline. And the platforms know this. The brands know this. The entire influencer marketing industry, which is worth well over $20 billion annually and growing, is built on exactly this exploitation of trust and parasocial intimacy. You are not being advertised to. You are being recommended to by someone you trust, except the recommendation is paid. And the payment was not always disclosed clearly, and even when it is, the emotional weight of the relationship overrides the disclosure in most people's minds. There is also a phenomenon happening on these platforms that I think is even more insidious than the overt advertising, and it doesn't even involve a product being sold directly. It's the normalization of a spending standard you cannot afford. When the content you consume daily, the videos, the posts, the stories, consistently reflects a lifestyle at a certain level, that level starts to feel normal. It becomes the baseline against which you measure your own life. A $500 skincare routine starts to feel standard if everyone you follow seems to have one. Regular international travel starts to feel like something people just do if your feed is full of people just doing it. Designer items start to feel less like luxuries and more like reasonable choices when they show up constantly in the lives of people you've come to see as relatable. This is not a conscious process. You don't sit down and decide to recalibrate your lifestyle expectations. It happens gradually, through repeated exposure, through the accumulation of thousands of small reference points that quietly shift what feels normal, reasonable, and attainable. And then your actual spending starts drifting upward to close the gap between your real life and the life your feed has convinced you is the standard. Not because you're irresponsible, because you're human, and you were exposed to a relentlessly curated version of reality that was never designed with your financial well-being in mind. I want to give you a concrete way to feel how real this is. Think back to what felt like a normal, reasonable Saturday night 5 years ago. Now think about what feels like a normal, reasonable Saturday night today. For most people, the baseline has quietly inflated, the restaurant is a little nicer, the outfit requires a little more. The overall cost of a standard enjoyable evening has crept upward in a way that didn't feel like a decision but absolutely was. Your feed didn't send you a memo announcing the upgrade. It just showed you enough of a different standard, enough times, that your internal baseline quietly shifted to match it. That is social media's most expensive trick, and it runs completely silently. Let me get even more specific about the technical manipulation, because I think once you understand the actual mechanics, the abstract feeling of being manipulated becomes something concrete and identifiable. Platforms use behavioral data, your watch time, your scroll speed, the slight hesitation before you swipe past something, the products you hovered over without clicking, the searches you made 3 weeks ago, to build a profile of your desires that is, in many cases, more accurate than your own conscious understanding of what you want. And then they use that profile to serve you content and advertising that is precisely calibrated to your specific psychological vulnerabilities. If your data shows that you respond to scarcity messaging, limited time, only a few left, selling fast, you will be served ads with scarcity messaging. If your data shows you respond to social proof, thousands of people love this. Trending now, everyone is talking about it, you will be served social proof. If your data shows you respond to identity-based messaging, for people who value quality, for those who understand real style, you will be served identity messaging. This is not a guess or a general approach. This is personalized psychological targeting at a scale and precision that has never existed before in the history of advertising. And you agreed to it. Buried in the terms of service that nobody reads is your consent to all of it. Here is something worth sitting with. The largest social media platforms employ thousands of engineers, data scientists, and behavioral psychologists whose full-time job is optimizing the moment between you seeing something and you buying it. Billions of dollars are spent annually refining this pipeline. Against that, you have your willpower, your vague intention to save more, and maybe a budgeting app you check once a month. This is not a fair fight. And pretending it is one, pretending that overspending on social media is purely a personal discipline failure, is letting the people who built this system entirely off the hook. And here is the financial consequence that never makes it into the headlines. The average American spends somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 a year on impulse purchases influenced by social media. Research from various consumer behavior studies consistently shows that social media exposure is one of the strongest predictors of unplanned spending. People who report high social media usage consistently demonstrate lower savings rates, higher credit card balances, and higher levels of financial stress, even when controlling for income. The platforms are not neutral entertainment that you consume passively. They are active financial drains with a business model that depends on your money flowing outward. Every time the algorithm serves you exactly the thing you didn't know you wanted until this moment, and your finger moves toward the buy button, the platform has successfully monetized your attention. And you have moved further from your financial goals without ever feeling like anything was done to you. Now I want to talk about FOMO, fear of missing out, because it deserves its own section in this conversation, and most people dramatically underestimate how financially expensive it is. FOMO is not just a feeling of social anxiety. In the context of social media and spending, it is a monetizable psychological state that the entire experience economy has been built to trigger. When you see people at an event you didn't attend, in a place you haven't been, wearing something you don't have, doing something you haven't done, a very specific kind of urgency gets activated. Not just envy, urgency. The sense that time is passing, that experiences are being had without you, that you are somehow falling behind in the living of your own life. And urgency, as any behavioral economist will tell you, is one of the most reliable shortcuts to impulsive, non-analytical decision-making. Urgency bypasses your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles long-term planning and consequence evaluation, and routes directly to the limbic system, which is ancient and emotional and wants relief right now. The concert ticket gets bought, the trip gets booked, the outfit gets ordered, and your future self, the one who has to look at the credit card statement, had zero input in any of it. FOMO spending is also uniquely resistant to regret in the moment, which makes it especially dangerous. Because you did go to the thing. You did buy the ticket. You did order the outfit before the event. And it was fine. Maybe even good. So the spending doesn't produce the immediate negative feedback that might help you learn from it. It just quietly adds to the balance. Quietly extends the timeline to your financial goals. Quietly compounds into thousands of dollars a year of spending that felt justified every single time it happened. There is one more financial drain that social media creates that almost never gets discussed, and it is the accumulation of micro-purchases and subscriptions that get discovered through platforms and then forgotten. The app that looked amazing in a TikTok video, $3 a month. The filter pack an influencer recommended, one-time purchase, $8. The productivity tool that kept showing up in your feed, $9.99 a month. The meditation app, the journaling app, the sleep tracker app, the recipe service, the curated content newsletter. Individually, every single one of these felt like a small, reasonable decision. Collectively, across a year, many people are spending $300 to $600 on digital micro purchases they discovered through social media and either barely use or forgot about entirely. This is by design too. The subscription economy is built on the bet that acquisition friction is high, but cancellation friction is even higher. Getting you to sign up takes one enthusiastic video recommendation. Getting you to cancel requires you to remember you have it, find the settings page, navigate the cancellation flow, and sit through a retention offer. Most people never do. Most people just keep paying, and the algorithm keeps surfacing new ones. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you to delete all your apps and become a social media monk, because that's neither realistic nor actually the point. The point is awareness and structure, giving your rational brain fighting chance against systems designed to circumvent it. The first and most powerful thing you can do is create friction deliberately where the platforms have removed it. Turn off in-app purchasing. Log out of shopping accounts so there are extra steps before any purchase completes. Install a browser extension that hides prices or removes buy buttons on retail sites when you arrive from social media. Make yourself sleep on every non-essential purchase for at least 24 hours before completing it. These tiny artificial friction points restore the pause that the platforms engineered away. They give your rational brain a moment to show up to the decision. And in that moment of pause, the question, do I actually want this? Or did an algorithm tell me I want this, becomes possible to ask. The second thing is a radical act of intentional curation. Audit who you follow. not for entertainment value, for financial impact. Does following this person consistently make you feel like your life is lacking something? Does this account reliably trigger the urge to buy, upgrade, or keep up? Unfollow without guilt. Replace aspirational consumption content with genuinely useful or genuinely nourishing content. This is not about becoming a minimalist or rejecting beautiful things. It's about recognizing that your feed is your financial environment, and you have the right to design that environment deliberately rather than having it designed for you by an algorithm whose interests are not aligned with yours. And here is something most people don't realize until they actually try it. The relief that follows a serious curation session is almost immediate. When you stop drowning in other people's highlight reels, the quiet dissatisfaction that was running in the background of your daily life starts to lift. You stop feeling subtly behind. You stop needing to close the gap. And when the need to close the gap disappears, a remarkable amount of the impulse to spend disappears right alongside it. The third thing is to make the cost visible. Not emotionally visible, mathematically visible. Every time you are about to make a social media-influenced impulse purchase, convert the dollar amount into hours of your life. If you earn $25 an hour after tax, a $150 impulse buy is 6 hours of your life. You traded 6 hours of your finite time on Earth for that. Does it still feel like a discovery? Does it still feel like you're treating yourself? Or does it feel more like what it actually is? A transfer of your time and freedom to a company that spent billions of dollars engineering the moment you just experienced. That reframe, applied consistently, changes the emotional arithmetic of impulse spending in a way that no budget ever quite manages. And the beautiful thing about this particular tool is that it requires nothing. No app, no system, no willpower reserves. Just a single question asked in the moment. How many hours of my life is this? Because time is the one currency nobody can manufacture more of. Money can be earned back. Hours cannot. When you start denominating your purchases in hours instead of dollars, you are essentially putting your finite life on one side of the scale and the algorithm's suggestion on the other. Most impulse purchases don't survive that weighing, and the ones that do, the ones you genuinely trade your hours for, those are the purchases worth making. Here is where I want to land this. Social media is not going anywhere. The apps are not going anywhere. The influencer economy is not going anywhere. And honestly, these platforms offer real value, connection, entertainment, information, genuine community. I'm not pretending otherwise, but there is a version of using these platforms where you are the consumer, and a version where you are the product, and more importantly, where your spending is the revenue stream. The goal is to shift firmly and permanently into the first category, to consume intentionally, rather than be consumed. To let the algorithm serve you what you've decided you want to see, rather than letting it decide what you want and then monetize that decision at your expense. Your attention is genuinely one of the most valuable things you possess. Every major technology company on the planet is competing for it. The least you can do is decide what it's worth and stop giving it away to systems that are actively working against your financial future. You are not a weak person if social media has cost you money. You are a human being who is targeted by some of the most sophisticated persuasion technology ever built. The playing field was never level, but now you know the field, and knowing it is the first move in changing how you play the game. And if today got you thinking seriously about where your money is actually going, and more importantly, how to take back control of it, then the next video is the perfect place to continue. We are breaking down the 50-30-20 rule, the simplest, most psychologically sustainable budgeting framework that exists. 50% for your needs, 30% for your wants, 20% for your future. No complicated spreadsheets, no guilt, just a clean system that actually works in real life. It is sitting right there on your screen. Click it now and let's keep building. I'll see you in the next one.